Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. Today, me and my partner Atifah will present our short story and our discussion. We will start by reading our short story called A Piece of String by Guy de Maupassant.
In the marketplace at Goderville was a great crowd. It all smelled of the stable, of meal, of hay, and of perspiration, giving off that half-human, half-animal odor which is peculiar to country folks. Major Hershenkorn of Brit had just arrived at Goderville and was making his way toward the square when he perceived on the ground a little piece of string. Major Hershenkorn, economical as are all true Normans, reflected that everything was worth picking up which could be of any use, and he stooped down but painfully because he suffered from rheumatism. He took the bit of thin string from the ground and was carefully preparing to roll it up when he saw Major Melendine, the harness maker, on his doorstep staring at him. They had once a quarrel about a halter, and they had borne each other malice ever since. Major Hershenkorn was overcome with a sort of shame at being seen by his enemy picking up a bit of string in the road. He quickly hid it beneath his blouse, and then slipped it into his breeches pocket, then pretended to be still looking for something on the ground which he did not discover, and finally went off toward the marketplace, his head bent forward and his body almost doubled into by rheumatic pains.
At Jordan's, the great room was filled with eaters, just as the vast court was filling with vehicles of every sort. Just opposite to where the diners were, there was a huge fireplace, with its bright flame, gave out a burning heat on the backs of those who sat at the right. Suddenly, the drum began to beat, in the courtyard before the houses. Everyone except some of the most indifferent, was on their feet at once, and ran to the door, to the windows, their mouths full, and napkins in their hand. Be it known, the inhabitants of Gordeville, and in general to all persons present at the market, there has been a loss this morning at Ballsville Road, between 9 and 10 o'clock. A black leather pocketbook containing 500 francs and a business papers. You are requested to return it to the mayor's office at once, or to Maitre Fortune Holbert of Manville. There will be 20 francs reward. When the man went away, the meal went on. They were finishing their coffees when the corporal appeared. He asked, "Is Maitre Horchicorn of Rouet here?"
Major Hershenkorn, seated at the other end of the table, answered.
Here I am," and he followed the corporal. The mayor was waiting for him, seated on an armchair. He was tall, grave man of pompous speech.
Major Hershenkorn, said he, this morning on the Buzzeville Road you were seen to pick up the pocketbook lost by Major Holberky of Manville.
The courtyard looked at the mayor in amazement, frightened already at the suspicion which rested on him. He knew not why. I picked up the pocketbook?
Yes, you.
I swear, I didn't even know anything about it.
You were seen.
I was seen? Who saw me?
Mr. Melendine, the harness maker. Then the old man remembered, understood with anger, said,
He saw me, did he? The rascal. He saw me picking up a string here, Mr. Mayor, and fumbling at the bottom of his pocket, he pulled out a little end of string. But the mayor ridiculously shook his head.
You will not make me believe, Major Hershenkorn, that Mr. Melendine, who is a man whose word can be relied on, has mistaken this string for a pocketbook. The peasant, furious, raised his hand and spat on the ground beside him, as if to attest his good faith, repeating,
For all that, it is the truth, Mr. Mayor, the mayor continued.
After you pick up the object in question, you even look about for some time in the mud to see if a piece of money had dropped out of it. The good man was choking with fear.
How can they tell? How can they tell such lies as that to slander an honest man? How could they? His protestations were in vain. He was not believed. He was confronted with Mr. Malandine, who repeated and sustained his testimony. They railed at one another for an hour. At his own request, Maitre Harchecorn was searched. Nothing was found on him. At last, the mayor, much perplexed, sent him away, warning him that he would inform the public prosecutor and ask for orders.
The news had spread. When he left the mayor's room at the mayor's office, the old man was surrounded and interrogated with a curiosity which sounded serious and mocking. As the case might be, but was answered by him in kind manner. He began to tell the story of the string. They did not believe him. They laughed.
He passed on, showing his pockets turned inside out to prove that he has nothing in them. They said to him, "You old rogue!" He grew more and more angry, feverish, in despair at not being believed, and kept on telling his story. The night came. It was time to go home. He left, with 3 of his neighbours, to whom he pointed out the place where he had picked up the string, and all the way he talked about his adventures. That evening he made the round of the village of Bruet for the purpose of telling everyone. He only met unbelievers.
The next day, about 1 in the afternoon, Maris Palmel, a farmhand of Major Burnton, the market gardener, returned the pocket-book and its contents to Major Holbrook. This man said, indeed, that he had found it on the road, but not knowing how to read, he had carried it home and given it to his master. The news spread all over. Major Hutchinson was informed.
All day he talked of his adventure. People had a joking manner while they listened. They did not seem to be convinced. He seemed to feel their remarks behind his back. On Tuesday of the following week, he went to the market of Gaudeville, prompted solely by the need of telling his story. Malandine, standing on the doorstep, began to laugh as he saw him pass. When seated at the table of Jourdain Tavern, he began again to explain the whole affair. A horse dealer of Mortivillers shouted at him. Get out, you old scamp! I know all about your old string." Horchukon stammered. "But since they found it again, the pocketbook," the other continued.
Hold your tongue, Daddy. There's one who finds it, and there's another who returns it. And no one the wiser. The farmer was speechless. He understood at last. They accused him of having had the pocketbook brought back by an accomplice. He tried to protest. The whole table began to laugh. He could not finish his dinner. He went home indignant, choking with rage, with confusion. He began anew to tell his tale, lengthening his recital every day, by each day adding new proofs. The more he denied it, the more artful his arguments, the less he was believed. Those are liars' proof. They said behind his back.
He felt this. It preyed upon him. He exhausted himself in useless efforts. He was visibly wasting away. Jokers would make him tell the story of the piece of string to amuse them, just as you make a soldier who has been in a campaign telling his story out of the battle. His mind kept growing weaker, and about the end of December he took to his bed. He passed away early in January, and in the ravings of his death agony he protested his innocence, repeating, "A little bit of string, a little bit of string. See, here it is, Mr. Mayor."
So, in the next session, Arifah and I are going to discuss a few questions from this short story. Arifah will start with the first question.
Firstly, we will discuss about the theme of the story. After reading the story, what do you think is the theme of the story, Atifah?
In my opinion, the theme of this story is how society can be cruel. It is because in life, once you are suspected, people around you will always manage to have bad thoughts about you. They easily believe in what others said and they will not care about how you will feel. In the case of Major Hutchinson, he was wrongly alleged by his enemy of getting the pocketbook. People disbelieved him as he said that he was not the thief. And when the pocketbook was written by a man, the society still thought that he had an accomplice who returned it. What about you, Arifah? Do you want to share your ideas about the theme of the story?
Wow, that was very interesting. For me, The theme of the story is you can never be innocent once you are accused. This is because rumors are easily spread nowadays. People will just judge the way they think about you without knowing the truth. No matter how you deeply explain, you will always be thought of as guilty. And whether you are already free from the indictment, it is impossible that people will rapidly forget that you had undergone. By the time Maitre Hochokorn was erroneously accused of stealing, just because of picking up a string, everyone thought that he was a rascal. After the accusation, people overlooked him, and even when the pocketbook was already returned. After reading the story, I have a question for you, Atifah. Who do you think should be blamed for the death of Hachikorn? He himself or the society? And why do you think that?
Wow, what a great idea. As for me, both he and the society should be blamed for his death. He himself should be blamed since he let the people around him affect him. He should have ignored them for knew to himself that he was innocent. He wasn't able to remain strong when people tried to accuse him. Moreover, society should always be responsible for his death and they were the reason for the weakness of Washington. They keep on saying bad ideas to him which made him feeble and made him feel not to fight anymore. Arifah, may I ask you a question about Hashimkum? Is Hashimkum more of an ignorant or an innocent man? Why?
Thank you for the great question. In my opinion, Hachukom is more of an ignorant man. He just went to Gondeville without knowing that he will be able to meet his misfortune there. He was also ignorant in the case he was suspected, even though he was not the one who stole the pocketbook. He was unaware that his enemy already disgraced him, and by the time the pocketbook was returned, people in the surroundings still talked behind his back negatively. Atifah, after reading the whole story, do you think there is a part where you felt suspense?
Oh, it's an amazing question. I think suspense was since the author successfully let the reader question about the things will happen next. Intense feeling was also present to the readers as they wait for what will happen to Hashinkum, as as they ask why he was called by the mayor. Is Hashinkum of birth here? Major Hashinkum, seated at the other end of the table, replied, "Here I am." And the officer resumed, "Major Hashinkum, will you have the goodness to accompany me to the mayor's office? The mayor would like to talk to you." Arifah, do you think the story contains conflict element?
I think it does. The conflict used by the author in the story were man versus man and man versus society. Man versus man occurred when Maitre Hochokorn was accused for getting the black leather pocketbook containing 500 francs and some business papers by his enemy, Maitre Malandine. Another conflict shown was man versus society. Being unaware, people around him still alleged him even though the husbandman at Yonville already returned the pocketbook. Out of all the characters from the story, can you choose one character and what do you think will happen to the character after the story ends?
I think I'm gonna pick Major Melendane because Major Melendane is the antagonist of the story. He was the enemy of Major Hashinkern. He even said to the mayor that Major Hashinkern was the one who stole the pocketbook. Hence, he was the reason for the ruined life of Major Hashinkern. After the story ends, we predict Major Melendane will regret his past actions towards Major Hashinkern and he lives his life without making the same mistake he did to Major Hashinkern. I think that's the only idea I can share with you. About Major Melendane. Which part of this story surprised you? If yes, why?
This story has a lot of surprising parts. The part of the story that surprised me is when the mayor did not believe Maitre Hochokorn, even though he said that he was innocent. Maitre Hochokorn showed his innocence by turning his pockets inside out. This was surprising because even though Maitre Hochokorn showed several proofs that he was not guilty, the mayor and the people of Gordeville did not believe him and laughed at him badly. The next question from me is, which character from the story that you would or wouldn't want to get to know?
I think I would want to get to know Major Hashinkum. Major Hashinkum is main character in this story. He is an honest and straightforward man. I would want to get to know him because I would like to support him when everyone else did not. I would also like to help him uphold justice and tell everyone the truth for his honesty. What about you? Can you pick a character you wouldn't want to get to know in details in the story?
From the story, I would not want to get to know Maitre Malandai. He was the one who ruined Maitre Horchokon's life. He became the enemy of Maitre Horchokon because he was wrongly accused Maitre Horchokon for stealing the pocketbook. I wouldn't want to get to know him because he accused Maitre Horchokon without investigating the truth properly. His actions should not be followed by others. That is all from me and Atifah. Thank you for listening.